Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1563B, and today's date is May 8th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Connecting the Dots, the Plan of Plans is Now in Motion. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we can see a lot has been happening today. Trump came out with his announcement about the Iranian deal, and we'll get into that in just a moment, but we want to go to North Korea right now. Trump did say Mike Pompeo is out in North Korea talking to the leaders there, laying down what the peace deal is going to be, laying out what is going to happen. And we also know that the Chinese president, Xi Jing Ping, and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un, they met in the port city of Dalian over the past 2 days. This is the second meeting between the two individuals. They talked about denuclearization, and it looks like Kim traveled to China via Air Koryo. This plane is believed to be Kim's personal jet, and basically they talked about what they want to do, denuclearization, and they're both in agreement. And Xi agreed that positive progress has been made, and he feels happy about this. So we see right now the deep state at this point, they are being pushed out, but again, the propaganda is picking up, and the deep state might try something during this summit with Trump and Kim Jong Un, and we see right now that most likely Pompeo and the rest are securing the area, but again, anything can happen. Remember, the deep state right now is on the losing end, and they realize what is happening, especially with what is happening with the Mueller case, what is happening with North Korea, and with the Iranian deal, which we're going to be talking about. Now, in Lebanon, the deep state is losing out there. Now, the deep state likes to stay in control of all these countries. Lebanon, Libya, Iraq, Sudan, Ukraine. They wanted Syria. They wanted to eventually go into Iran. And they needed to keep control of the Middle Eastern countries to keep the petrodollar propped up. And basically, what has been happening is a lot of these Middle Eastern countries are turning towards Russia and China. And a lot of these Middle Eastern countries, they are moving away from the deep state, and they want elections. They want to elect leaders. They want the people to elect leaders, and the deep state does not want this to happen. And this is why in Lebanon, the Islamic State, they were hitting different election areas trying to drive the people away. But the elections went ahead, and this is the first election in 9 years? And we can see this is something that the deep state or even Israel would not want to happen. Hezbollah and its allies won 67-seat majority of parliaments out of 128, equally divided between Muslims and Christians. The right-wing Christians, Lebanese Forces, was the biggest winner in Sunday's elections, nearly doubling its number of parliamentary seats from 8 to 15. Hezbollah has 13. Its allies made significant gains, including the Shiite Amal movement, and for the first time, a proportionally representative system was in place, replacing the winner-take-all one, permitting more independent candidates to participate. Now, turnout was pretty low. It was about 49%. Remember, the Islamic State was in the area trying to drive the people away. And we can see right now, things are not going the way the deep state would like in Lebanon. The same thing's happening in Iraq. The same thing's happening in Libya. We see right now General Haftar, he is now pushing through and destroying the terrorist organizations, taking over more and more areas, liberating the cities and towns. And we can see right now the same thing is happening out in Syria, where Russia and Syria, they're sweeping through and liberating these towns and cities and things like that, and people are cheering. We also see right now that the White House is going to be reviewing assistance to South Sudan. Now, that's another country where the deep state went in and they basically wanted them to obey. They wanted regime change, which they tried. And the United States is going to review the assistance program to South Sudan. The United States will initiate a comprehensive review of the assistance program to South Sudan because of the lack of progress in reaching a peace agreement to end the violence in the country. Now, here we have all these different countries in the Middle East where the deep state came in, they had regime change, the people didn't like this, and they fought back. Now, with Trump in office, he's looking at all of this. Actually, Trump wants to remove the troops from the Middle East. He's still repeating this mantra. He hasn't stopped. And I think eventually what's going to happen, we will be pulling out of these areas. Now, of course, you're still battling the deep state. You're still battling the neocons. You're still battling other factions. But I think eventually the plan is to remove the troops from this area because there's no reason for the troops to be there. We see that Trump has confirmed he's going to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. Now, once again, we can see that Iran does not like this. The European nations, they do not like this. We see especially individuals here in the United States who are involved in the Iranian deal. They don't want this, especially John Kerry, Obama, and the rest. And you need to stop and think for a sec. They don't want this to happen because they really believe that they created this peace deal with Iran for the betterment of the country. Or did they do it for another reason? Because as we can see, these individuals never did anything for the country. And it seems like they're very, very concerned in keeping this deal together. And they're basically using shadow diplomacy and talking to many individuals to try to keep this whole thing together. And I don't believe it's for the country. Because again, they're violating the Logan Act. Now, Iran is out there and they're saying, listen, we'll just go talk with the European nations. We'll move closer to China and Russia. And basically, we'll deal with them instead of the United States. Now, of course, we're hearing the propaganda out there that Iran is ready to attack. Iran is going to attack Israel. Iran is going to attack the United States. And again, this sounds just like North Korea. When peace is being pushed, all of a sudden the propaganda is war. Or when you're trying to back out of something the deep state wants, again, the propaganda is war or a collapse of the system. Like if the people vote for Brexit, well, the UK economy is going to implode. Well, it didn't happen. But the deep state, the central bankers, that's what they were pushing out there. If there's peace with North Korea, we're going to war. If you back out of the Iranian deal, we're going to war. That's all they say. And we can see right now there's a specific reason why they don't want this to happen. Now, it's not the same reason that Israel wants. Israel has been trying to get into Iran and have regime change for a very long time. I think right now Trump is using Israel to push this agenda. Now, Israel is out there and they're saying they're getting ready for an attack. We're mobilizing. We see Iran. They're moving their weaponry. They're getting ready to attack. And Israel opens their shelters. They're putting troops on high alert. This has nothing to do with Iran. They're not going to attack Israel. This is the last thing on their minds right now because Trump decided to pull out of the Iranian deal. Actually, before the Iranian deal, Iran was never going to attack. If you really go back in time, Israel was saying that Iran was going to attack since the 80s. Iran hasn't started a war or attacked anyone to start a war in over 200 years. They're not about to do it now. This has nothing to do with this. But Israel, their agenda is actually to go into Syria. And it looks like they might have bombed or done something in Damascus, set off a couple of missiles, because their push is to really remove Assad and then eventually get into Iran. They're still on that agenda. They haven't stopped thinking about this. But I think what is happening right now, and we'll be talking about this in a little bit, the Trump administration, the Patriots, they are using this to their advantage. Now, Q dropped quite a bit. He dropped post 1318. And he goes through quite a bit, and we're going to be connecting all the dots here. First, he says, think logically. Mass exodus in D.C., mass exodus corporate CEOs. Basically, they're terrified. Trump is in control right now. The amount of homes in D.C. are up for sale, way above what's typical. Why? This is the justice phase. Who has the power? Who has the control? POTUS and the good guys. They're in control right now. Now, if POTUS was not in control, would they be retreating? No. They'd be trying to stage a coup or worse. Now, they still might push an event because they're desperate. Q says, who is the Attorney General? Sessions. He is the Attorney General. Q says, who must approve the firing dismissal of the Department of Justice officials? Sessions. Reread Department of Justice org change, open source, more in pipe. And there is a chart, and it shows that things are definitely changing. And Q says refer to the executive orders that Trump signed on March 31st, 2017. The comprehensive plan for reorganizing the executive branch. Everything is being reorganized right now. Let's go back to post 586, where Q said, what happens to the FBI? Quite simply, when all this corruption is exposed, agencies get completely dismantled, shuttered, and rolled into something completely new. It seems like the Department of Justice is laying the groundwork for a disaster scenario, which is exactly what we are expecting. The FBI will probably be gutted. The CIA won't exist anymore. Actually, Trump has mentioned this about the FBI. The NSA and Department of Justice will probably be the only two left functioning during this transition time. And it's all going to get rolled into one new agency overseen by the Department of Justice. And you can see from what is happening that this could be a possibility. Now, Q says, who is the FBI director? Wray. Who must approve the firing dismissal of FBI agents? That is Wray. If Sessions and Wray are DC swamp deep state, why are they cleaning their respective houses? Well, if they are swamp and deep state, they wouldn't clean the houses. They would leave everyone the way they are. Q says use logic. Think about it. They're not deep state. Q says, why are they slow walking unredacted data? Why are they slow walking doc disclosures? Probably because the root of this evil goes so deep, it takes time to uncover all the bad actors while not giving yourself away. You want to purge these people, not have them acting as sleepers in the future. You want to make sure that they don't realize what is happening. So they play their hand, and where they can work their way up in the ranks and start hiring other bad actors until the whole agency is corrupt again. So you don't want that to happen. You want to keep everything on the down low. Q asked the question, why is the White House backing up the Department of Justice? Well, what happens if the same data is being used by other investigators? There was a memo released by Nunes, who basically subpoenaed Sessions for info on a person of interest. Now, the Department of Justice turned around and denied Nunes a subpoena for specific information about an individual, citing severe consequences, potential loss of life, and compromising ongoing criminal investigations, which means that other investigations are going on and they don't want to release this right now. Q went on to say, what does it mean if a grand jury is impaneled? Now, unlike trial juries, grand juries don't weigh in on defendants' guilt or innocence. Instead, they convene before any changes have been filed in order to determine whether changes or an indictment should be filed. Prosecutors decide whether or not to impanel a grand jury, and they usually only do so when a serious felony charges are a possibility. Like a trial jury, a grand jury is presented with evidence, exhibits, and testimony from witnesses about matters pertinent to the investigation. But the setting in which this unfolds is different. Trial juries meet with a judge, lawyers, defendants, and the plaintiffs are present, and the proceedings are generally open to the public. Grand juries, on the other hand, meet in secret, and aside from a prosecutor who pressed the charges, nobody else is usually present. Crucially, the potential defendants, that is, the person of people against whom charges might be pressed, are not allowed to attend grand jury proceedings. So we answered that of why the grand jury is impaneled, and Q went on to say, why are confusing questions asked to the outcome R.E. Mueller? What would be the purpose of creating confusion? What was Sessions' Senate confirmation vote? What was Rod Rosenstein's Senate confirmation vote? If Rod Rosenstein is dirty, Mueller also must be dirty. If Mueller is dirty, Rod Rosenstein must also be dirty. Common denominator. Why did Sessions pick Rod Rosenstein? So let's think about this for a second. Why is there so much confusion with Mueller? Well, a lot of people think that he's a white hat and he's undercover right now, where everyone believes he's looking into the Russian collusion, and he really isn't. while that is his cover, many people think that what's happening behind the scenes is that Mueller is actually investigating Hillary Clinton. And basically, the corporate media, the deep state says you can't fire Mueller. You can't fire Mueller. He has to stay there. He has to stay there. Now think about this for a second. He has the deep state, the corporate media, pushing that line where you can't get rid of him. Now Trump is never going to fire him because that would be ridiculous, because then they would point the fingers at Trump saying, look, he was getting close, you fired him, and you must be guilty. So the enemies, the deep state, the corporate media, they're screaming that Mueller's investigation is legitimate for months. So his investigation is legitimate. And then what are they going to say when they are suddenly confronted with the truth, where he was never investigating Russian collusion? He was investigating something completely different. Is this the purpose? Is this the reason why there's so much confusion? Is this the cover? Remember, a lot of the things that we see happening right now is not exactly what is happening. Now, he also asked, what was Sessions' Senate confirmation vote? Well, his confirmation vote was 52 in favor, 47 against. It was very, very close. Deep state? Most likely not, because when you have the deep state, it looks like those that are in favor is a lot higher. Rod Rosenstein, Senate confirmation vote, was 94 in favor, 6 against. And that's why he said if Rod Rosenstein is dirty, Mueller must be dirty. If Mueller is dirty, Rod Rosenstein must be dirty. Common denominator. Now, did Mueller switch over and become a white hat, where Rod Rosenstein, maybe he's still a black hat, or are both working with Trump to set the deep state up? Because why did Sessions pick Rod Rosenstein? Was it because it was a cover? It could be. Now, Q came out and said that the midterms are safe, and there's no reason to worry about the midterms. If we go back to post 1197, election fraud will be revealed soon. Yes, midterms are safe. Watch CA, California. Impeachment proceedings initiated. This is another question coming out of Q. And it looks like the summary of H Resolution 646, 115th Congress, 2017 to 2018, impeaching Donald Trump, President of the United States, of high misdemeanors. But this looks like it's nonsense. And with the midterm elections coming up and the amount of votes that you need to get the impeachment rolling along, it looks like this most likely is not going to happen. Q says, power at all costs. Why must the Department of Justice and FBI be cleaned first? Well, that's so arrests can actually be made. Why is the Department of Justice responsible for? Prosecution of criminals. What is the FBI responsible for? Investigation into other branches of government. Why did Hillary Rodham Clinton get a free pass? Use logic. Because she had some good friends in the Department of Justice and FBI. They let her go, knowing full well what she did. Define single shooter. One guy with on-shot to get the job done. Who is Huber? Well, prior to confirmation as United States Attorney, Mr. Huber served in leadership roles within the U.S. Attorney's Office as the National Security Section Chief and Executive Assistant U.S. Attorney. Mr. Huber personally protected a number of high-profile cases that centered on violent crime, domestic and international terrorism, and the rule of law. The mission of the National Security Section is to investigate and prosecute criminal activity that threatens our nation's security. We are responsible for investigating and prosecuting international and domestic terrorism, export control violations, espionage, unlawful disclosure of classified information, threats against high-ranking public officials, non-terrorist, extraterritorial violent crimes against American citizens, immigration violations, and other sensitive matters that implicate national security. Huber is a special prosecutor from Utah. So Q went on to say, define IG, the Inspector General Michael Horowitz. When does Sessions step back in? Well, if we go back to post 987, it says, what is Sessions specifically recused from? Well, isn't that Russian collusion? The whole Russian thing? So Sessions recused himself for a Russian-related investigation as they pertain to the Trump campaign, given Sessions' involvement in the Trump campaign. Once that's over, he's back. And it looks like he's been doing things behind the scenes. Why did Sessions secretly engage Huber? Sessions needed someone trustworthy to move against Hillary Rodham Clinton and Barack Obama. At the time, he really couldn't. Why did Sessions reveal Huber? Because they're clearly getting ready to prosecute. They wanted to signal this to put them on the defensive. Timing is everything. The Department of Justice does not discuss ongoing investigations or confirm specific matters. Refer back to the memo to Nunes. What about the active investigation into leaks? Well, getting rid of leakers is obviously part of the purge. Horowitz oversees a nationwide workforce of more than 450 special agents, auditors, inspectors, attorneys, and support staff whose mission is to detect and deter waste, fraud, abuse, and misconduct in the Department of Justice programs and personnel, and to promote economy and efficiency in department operations. Why did MP step into the CIA prior to the Secretary of State, that is, Mike Pompeo? Now, this brings us to the Iranian deal. Why did he step into the CIA prior to becoming the Secretary of State? This was planned. Think about this for a second, because he needed to investigate what happened with the Iranian deal. They are deeply connected. Think offshore. Pompeo did his investigation, purge, and found a giant slush fund. Perhaps the one Q has referenced earlier. Hillary Rodham Clinton, State Department arranged all those horrible deals. Obama needed cash, moved to Iran, and the CIA took care of the nitty-gritty. This is where it all happened. So basically, Pompeo had to look into this, connect all the dots, see where all this was going, and this is why he was there first. He needed to connect the dots and flush out the bad actors. Military intel providing support during this time. Why are select executive orders aggressively being written and put into law? Because basically, Trump is backing the deep state into a corner. No escape. He just basically signed an executive order / memorandum about the Iranian deal. This is not about having regime change. This is not about starting a war. This is about getting the deep state to play their hand. Remember, Obama, Kerry, they've been going around using shadow diplomacy, trying to save this Iranian deal. The only reason they're working so hard to save it, it's not for the good of the country, it's to protect themselves. So basically, what's happening here? Everything is being done for a reason. There are no coincidences. There are no outside comms, Q says. He's not speaking to anyone else except on this board. So basically, we can see that all of this is being done to have the deep state play their hand. And the investigation is moving forward. And Israel is being used to basically keep the confusion alive. Of course, they would like war. They would like to go into Syria. They would like to then go into Iran. But if we were going to have war, why didn't Trump just have war with North Korea? Why would Trump now pick Iran, where he knows China and Russia would defend Iran? It makes no sense. Plus, if you remember from Q's drops, POTUS never telegraphs his moves. He creates confusion. He makes people think this is what he's doing, while he's doing something completely different. That is what is happening right now, because they're getting ready to really back the deep state in and to expose everything that they've been doing. Now, we know the deep state and those corrupt government officials, they're getting very nervous. Same thing with CEOs. They're on the run right now. And a lot of these individuals are resigning. A lot of these individuals are not going to seek re-election. And Q dropped a post 1317 on May 8th, which lays out a huge list of all these individuals that are no longer seeking re-election, or they're resigning, or they're going to depart very soon. He also talks about the CEOs that have been resigning en masse, and we see that No Name, which is John McCain, he's going to be departing very, very soon. We see Bob Corker in the Senate, he's not seeking re-election. Jeff Flake, not seeking re-election. Orrin Hatch, not seeking re-election. Bob Goodlatte, not seeking re-election. Carol Shea Porter, not seeking re-election. And the list goes on and on and on. And we know that Paul Ryan, he's not seeking re-election. And there's many, many individuals, and I believe that this is going to continue on. Attorney General of California plus Department of Justice, FBI CEOs, they are also all leaving. And Q says something very interesting here, said, do not fall victim to the mainstream media, other fake false narrative pushes. And you're hearing a lot of this where a lot of people are saying one thing and something else is happening. Remember, most of the stuff that you're seeing today is a cover, so things are happening behind the scenes. Remember going back to North Korea, we discussed how there wasn't going to be a war, how peace negotiations were happening behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the mainstream media and many others were saying that we're going to war, that it's inevitable, get ready, World War III is going to happen. People are going to be saying the same thing with the Iran crisis right now, where it looks like Trump wants to push a war, and he's trying to get a war started. Israel is out there. They are going to push their agenda, which is completely separate and apart from what Trump is doing. I know a lot of people think it's all one and the same, but it isn't. He's using them. Iran is not going to attack Israel. If anything does happen, it's a completely false flag. Or Israel is not going to go in and attack Iran. The United States is not going to attack Iran. Russia and China, they back Iran. It would be absolutely ridiculous. Just going into North Korea would be ridiculous. Going into all Syria would be ridiculous. That's why it hasn't happened. This is the cover to make everyone look someplace else, while the investigation and what needs to be done is happening in the background to trap these deep state people. And we'll have to wait to see how this plays along, but we can see already that things are now in motion. Plan of plans are in motion, and this is the big one. Q did say Iran is next, and it doesn't mean war is coming next. It means to get Iran, not Iran itself, but the deep state out of the picture. They created this plan on purpose, and it wasn't for the benefit of the United States. It was the benefit to themselves to get something else started. And this is why they're defending it so hard. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.